Hello and welcome to today's ESHA Genesis R&D webinar. My name is Alicia and I'll be joined by my colleague Paulina. Today we'll be discussing an overview of the FASTER Act as well as working with the allergen features in Genesis R&D. Before we get into the main topic, let me give you a little background on ESHA research. ESHA was established in 1981 and has grown from offering one of the first nutrition and labeling software solutions to a full suite of products and services, including Genesis R&D Foods, Genesis R&D Supplements, the food processor for dietary analysis, and our consulting services that provides labeling services, formula review, and their expertise for customized projects. Genesis R&D Foods was introduced in 1991 to help address the need for convenient formula analysis and formatting of NLEA food labels and U.S. regulations. Over the years, Genesis has remained the go-to standard for product development, recipe analysis, and nutrition facts creations, as well as restaurant menu analysis and reporting. We offer label modules to prepare compliant labels for the U.S., Canada, the EU, and Mexico. Today we'll be demonstrating Genesis Foods version 11.10. If you have any questions about your license or account, please contact the ESHA sales team at sales@esha.com. Throughout the year, we will cover additional topics. We have one upcoming webinar posted and a few more in the works. On August 11th, we'll be talking about moisture adjustment with a focus on baked goods. And look for more topics coming soon on the ESHA website. You can register for upcoming webinars at the ESHA website in the Events tab. From there, you can also access previously recorded webinars. As always, this webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive a link to the recording as well as to the slide deck following the webinar. Please note that if you do have any questions, send those in right away via the GoToWebinar control panel. Don't wait until the end. We do have colleagues standing by to help respond to your questions. And if we don't happen to get back to you during the webinar, we'll follow up with you directly. Today, we'll present an overview of the FASTER Act and affected allergen regulations. We'll talk about best practices in working with allergens in Genesis R&D to help you track the necessary information that you need and demonstrate how to work with the allergens in Genesis, and we'll end with Q&A. So at this time, let me turn it over to Paulina.
Thank you, Alicia. So as Alicia mentioned, we'll be talking about the FASTER Act of 2021. The FASTER Act stands for Food Allergy Safety, Treatment, Education, and Research. It was signed into law April of this year, and it is aimed at improving the health and safety of Americans living with food allergies. In addition to amending the list of allergens to include sesame, it also requires that the Secretary of Health and Human Services submit a report to Congress regarding their surveillance and collection of data, effective food allergy diagnostics, prevention of onset of food allergies, reduction of risks, development of new therapeutics, and recommendations and strategies to expand, enhance, or improve current allergen strategies. In 2018, the FDA issued a request for information regarding the prevalence and severity of sesame allergens in the United States. This request was made with the intent of possible regulatory action to require that sesame be labeled as an allergen on packaged foods in the United States. On November 10th, 2020, the FDA published a draft guidance document for manufacturers voluntarily declaring sesame. The guidance document gives examples of how to declare sesame when present in spices or flavorings or used under alternate ingredient names. On April 16th, 2021, the FASTER Act was passed by Congress and signed into law by the President on April 23, 2021. This officially declared sesame as the 9th major U.S. allergen for food labeling. The mandatory compliance date for sesame declaration is set for January 1, 2023. All food packaged on or after that date must declare sesame as an allergen when present and comply with the FASTER Act. Before this act, there were 8 major U.S. allergens that were required to be labeled on food packages. Those included milk, eggs, fish, crustacean shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, and soy. Fish and shellfish must be declared with the species, such as salmon or lobster, and also tree nuts must be declared with a type of nut, such as walnut. This act adds sesame as the 9th allergen under the Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act, or FELPCA. Additionally, it established new framework and reporting system for how additional potential allergens are reviewed and considered for addition to FELPCA. Like I mentioned before, the compliance date is set for January 1st, 2023, and any food packaged on or after this date must comply with FASTER Act and FELPCA regulations. This period of almost 2 years gives food manufacturers and companies time to identify sources of sesame within their products, establish allergen control programs surrounding sesame, and update their labels with the allergen when it is present. So, what is sesame and where do we see it used? Sesame is a flowering plant of the genus Sesamum. It's native to Africa, but now it's mostly found in Asia, Myanmar, and India. Many parts of the plant are edible and used across food production, including the leaves, seeds, and plant oils. Sesame seeds grow in 3 colors: white, brown, and black. We will get into some examples of food products that commonly contain sesame shortly. But first, let's discuss sesame as an allergen. The prevalence of sesame allergies has increased over the years. And it has been reported that about 4% of the US population is affected. This could mean as many as 1.6 million Americans have an allergic reaction to sesame. Reactions can range from mild to severe, with some cases causing severe anaphylactic shock. Other common reactions include asthma or difficulty breathing, swelling of the mouth, throat, and face. So we can see how it's very important that somebody with a sesame allergy be able to easily identify foods that contain any source of sesame. However, it is not as easy to identify from simply looking at the list of ingredients. This act is aimed to address this issue. Sesame has many alternate names or synonyms. Additionally, it was previously allowed to be included in spices, seasonings, or flavoring with the ingredient listing without being declared. So even if someone knew all the possible terms for sesame, it could still be hiding in the ingredient statement under one of these groupings. When evaluating products for the presence of sesame, you must look for alternate names for sesame. You must also investigate all instances of spices, flavors, and seasoning for the presence of sesame, and oftentimes push back to the ingredient supplier in order to verify that all specifications call out sesame as an allergen when it is present. As you can see here, the origins of the word sesame are present in multiple languages, botanicals, and scientific plant classifications. You can see many of these origins use the same root and can be easily identified as sesame. Now on this slide, we see many other alternate names for sesame. These are not as easily identifiable as sesame. They do not all have a similar root word, and many of these are not commonly known ingredient names. To the average consumer, these would not necessarily raise alarm bells for the presence of sesame in a food product that they are consuming. This update to regulation will help identify sources of sesame that are not easily identifiable. As I mentioned earlier, sesame is used in a variety of different food products. Here are some examples of foods that may contain sesame. This is not meant to be a comprehensive list. It is just meant to show how prevalent sesame can be in many food products. There are baked goods, cereals, seasonings, oils, snacks, and sauce categories that commonly utilize sesame as an ingredient. And here are some more examples of foods that may contain sesame. We see that sesame is a very common ingredient in many Asian and Middle Eastern cuisines. However, it is also used in a variety of other processed foods, like meats and meat alternatives. Some foods fortified with vitamin E may also use sesame as a source of tocopherols. As mentioned before, the FDA did release a guidance document on November 10th, 2020. That document was meant to help manufacturers voluntarily disclose sesame in ingredient statements. The guidance document gave examples of suggested ways in which to declare sesame in parentheticals after the source in the ingredient statement. Under the FELPCA regulations are formally updated, until the FELPCA regulations are formally updated with the inclusion of sesame as the 9th allergen and declaring sources of sesame within the ingredient statement, this guidance document represents the current thinking of the FDA with non-binding recommendations. Sesame can be voluntarily declared now, but starting January 1st, 2023, it will be mandatory. In order to comply, packaged food that contains sesame must declare the allergen using its common name, and it can be declared in two ways. As with any allergen, it can be declared in the ingredient statement, in parentheses after the source. When a spice or flavor contains the allergen, it must be listed in parentheses, as you can see with sesame or including sesame, directly after the source. When an alternate name or source of the ingredient is listed, it is also required to list the common name in parentheses as well. We have an example here with tahini. It can still be listed as tahini in the ingredient statement, but sesame should immediately follow in parentheses. The other method of allergen declaration is in the contain statement. This is also commonly referred to as the allergen statement. This contain statement is listed below the ingredient statement and would list all allergens that are present. For example, contains egg, milk, sesame. Currently, Genesis has sesame seed as an allergen option, and it is required allergen in Canada. Sesame is not yet included as a US allergen, but the sesame seed allergen can be used to track your ingredients now. However, it will not yet appear in your contain statement. Another option is to create a custom allergen and name it sesame. Sesame will then appear in the contain statement. When we update our software in the fall to include sesame as a US allergen, we can assist you with merging your custom allergen with the updated sesame allergen. We will demonstrate how to do this at the end of this presentation. As we said earlier, there are a couple options that you have for declaring sesame in Genesis. You can begin tracking the presence of sesame in your ingredients and wait to declare it in the contain statement until the mandatory compliance date. In this scenario, you could utilize the sesame seed allergen that is already in the database and wait to update your ingredient statements until you are ready to change your labels for the January 1st, 2023 compliance date. Another option is to voluntarily declare the allergen on your food packaging now. In this scenario, you would want to create a custom allergen for sesame in the contain statement within Genesis and declare sesame when present. You can also update all ingredient statements now to include the common name for sesame whenever it is present, like in the examples we gave with spices, flavorings, or items like tahini. The best practice is to declare now. Start drafting internal protocols for ingredient and recipe management, regardless of when you decide to declare. Review all your ingredients and recipes. Request updated specifications from your suppliers. Read those spec sheets carefully for places that sesame may be hidden under alternate names or groupings of ingredients. You can also send in your final products for allergen testing at a certified lab. When the allergen is present in a facility, be sure to set up allergen control programs to include sesame per allergen FSMA controls. Remember, full compliance will be required on January 1st, 2023. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Alicia, who will demonstrate the options that I outlined for declaring sesame within Genesis.
Thank you, Paulina. Okay, so I should be showing Genesis. Paulina, can you just let me know if you can see Genesis there?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, wonderful, thanks. So we recently presented a series of Genesis R&D 101 webinars, and the last of that series covers allergens and tracking allergens in general in Genesis R&D. Today, I'm going to cover some of the allergen functions with a focus on tracking sesame as an allergen per the FASTER Act. And again, as Paulina mentioned, the compliance date is January 1st, 2023, but the effective date was April 23rd, 2021. So you can begin labeling sesame as a major allergen at this time. We kind of have this interim state where the FDA did provide guidance. So if you're declaring or clarifying information within your ingredient statement, like about those spices or where sesame might be has been used as another name like tahini, you want to clarify that sesame is contained in that. That's one option. But we're talking about also the declaration of sesame within the contains statement or that allergen statement along with other allergens. As Paulina mentioned, generally speaking with Genesis, it's best practice to assign allergens at the ingredient level. So as you build your recipes, the correct allergen information for each ingredient is consistently pulled into the recipe. In addition, you want to establish a consistent process within your organization of assigning and reviewing the allergen information for each ingredient. So on that note, I do want to show you My Preferences settings in Genesis. My Preferences, this area is where you will find settings and display options that you can choose for working with the screens, with the views, with reports and other settings in the software. My Preferences is set by the individual, but if you have multiple Genesis users at your organization, you want to coordinate some of these settings so that you all work with the same views and apply the same considerations when you're working with ingredients, recipes, and the regulatory aspects of the program. For example, in My Preferences, we have this label tab, and within the label area is an allergen section. So here you can see that I have the countries or the authorities that are available in Genesis as showing. So we have US, Canada, EU, and Mexico. Allergens that are connected with all of these countries. This is regardless of the license that you have for the software. So even if you don't license all of the available modules for Genesis, you will still see these options in your software. And I want to show you where you're seeing, one place that you're seeing this information. So if I open an ingredient, here I've opened the ingredient record and go to the Allergens tab, you can see I have all of the categories shown for all countries and authorities. So US, Mexico, Canada, EU, all of these allergens refer back to all of the countries and authorities. And you'll see those items that ship, the allergens that ship with the software in the black text here. The blue text down here indicates allergens that I have added to my own software. So just one way to keep those straight. And then here you will notice that Sesame Seeds appears in this list. Let me just jump back to My Preferences. And again, the label tab with the allergen section, I can choose to include or exclude any of these that I would like. So I can uncheck all but the US set of allergens. And in doing so, let me move back to my ingredient here and show you once again that allergen section, by choosing only the US set, you can see that this appears quite different. We don't have the sesame seeds allergen stated in that list. And again, as Paulina mentioned, we are updating Genesis to include sesame as one of the US allergens. That is expected in the next Genesis update, which is scheduled for fall of this year. And we'll be sure to let you all know when that is available. But at this time, the sesame seeds allergen that we see when all authorities are selected does not list sesame as a US allergen. And again, on another note, if you're working with my preferences, say you are viewing only this US list, but a colleague is viewing all authorities, so they see all of the allergens that ship with the software. So they may be seeing sesame seed where you're not seeing any sesame related allergen. So again, just a reminder, you want to have consistent processes in place at your organization with all of your Genesis users, and that you're all viewing and reviewing the same set of fields. So one more time, I'm going to switch back to my preferences, label, tab, and the allergens area. I'm just going to select those all again so I can just talk about a couple more points with the allergens. I mentioned you see the allergens that ship with the software in the black text. You may also notice that they are all marked as containing these allergens. This is intentional and it errs on the side of caution. It is your responsibility to select the correct allergens for each ingredient. Conversely, for the allergen indicators that I've added to my software, those marked in blue, these are not populated automatically. So if I add a new allergen like almonds to my software, it doesn't check all of my ingredients. That would not be helpful. So I just want you to be aware of the behavior of these allergen settings and the automatic declarations and default settings here. So again, at this time for US labeling, you can declare sesame as an allergen, but again, on or after January 1st, 2023, products being packaged must declare sesame as an allergen in the US. So at this time, you have some choices to make on how you want to work with tracking and reporting sesame information. If you just want to track sesame content, but not necessarily declare it within the US allergen statement at this time, then you can just simply select, the sesame seeds item here. So when working with allergens, say you've opened an ESHA database ingredient for the first time, or if you've added a new ingredient to your software and you go to review the allergens, you would uncheck those that don't apply, or you can use this clear allergens button and then check the allergens that do apply for this ingredient. So again, if you weren't quite ready to declare on US allergen statements, but you do want to mark the sesame seeds allergen to help you track that information, you can certainly do so. So mark it with sesame seeds and save the ingredient record. What this does then is anytime you're using this ingredient in a recipe, it will include that sesame seeds indicator. At this time, it won't display on the US allergen statement. However, again, once we release the updated version of Genesis, then that will merge or it will be reported as a sesame allergen for the US allergen statement. And then if you want to declare sesame within the US allergen statement at this time, then right now you would need to add a new allergen to your software. In doing this, you can track and declare the sesame allergen within the US allergen statement. And when the Genesis update, the next update is available, we will provide you with a path to merge your added sesame allergen with the existing sesame seed allergen so that it behaves in the same way that the allergens included with Genesis behave. So let me show you how to add a new allergen to Genesis. I'll close this record. So from the main ribbon in Genesis, if you click on Database and then Modify, You'll see this window here and the Allergens tab. So here again, similar view as we saw in the ingredient record, we have the allergens that ship with Genesis in the black text, and then you can see that I've added some of my own allergens. To create a new allergen, just select the new button. You'll see this window. And let me talk about a few settings or selections that you want to consider. So for this allergen, I will name it sesame. Sesame is the term in the language that's used in the FASTER Act and the FDA regulatory documentation. So that's what we'll call this allergen, sesame. And then the file type you may want to consider. For this, we would choose allergen. But to speak to these a little bit, for the file type, you could add a folder, like we have an allergens folder. When I've added some of my new allergens, I've created a tree nut species folder, and then within that, added new allergens of the specific tree nuts. But for this, again, sesame, we're going to group this or treat it like allergens, so we'll assign it to the allergen file type. And then for the default location, for this sesame item, we'll select this first option, the allergen statement contains. And let me just stress here that when you add a new allergen, if this is a required allergen that needs to be declared under mandate, then you want to select this first option, allergen statement contains. It will place this allergen within the contains or within the allergen statement. The additional allergen statement option is used if you have a voluntary type statement that you might say may contain traces of, or other types of advisory statements. Those would be placed as or chosen as the additional allergen statement. But for this purpose, it's a required allergen, so we'll want to select the allergen statement contains. And then you can choose to use or add additional language. So if I wanted to add French and Spanish translations, just click the edit button and enter the text that you need. Click OK, and it's going to add sesame as a new allergen to my list. So here I'm going to close this window, go back to my sesame ingredient, select the allergens, and then again here, you can see I have my new allergen of sesame added. So I've already chosen sesame seeds, but here I do want to select sesame as my US indicated allergen, and again, save this record. So now anytime I use this ingredient in a recipe, it will be marked with the sesame related allergen items, and by adding that new allergen and indicating that it will be in the contains statement, then I can track my allergens and declare it as a US sesame allergen. So let me open a recipe that uses that ingredient that I've been working with. So my sesame flour that I've been working with today and a few others. I'll view the allergen statement here. And let me talk just a little bit about this screen. We have 3 sections for the allergens. So the top section shows all of the allergens indicated based on the ingredients that I brought through within this recipe. This middle section here shows the ingredients, the individual ingredients, and the allergens that they are reporting. And then the bottom section in the screen shows the allergen statement as it is developing. As I work with all of these ingredients and their allergen indicators, the allergen statement is forming. And so I know that I have a bit of review to do. I'm not expecting to see all of these allergens indicated based on the ingredients that I have. So I can see, here, almond flour is marked with almonds, but it's cleared of the other allergens. That's appropriate. My sesame flour that I just edited, now it's showing the sesame and sesame seeds. This toasted sesame seeds item is showing all of the allergens still. Almost all, except not my new sesame that I added, because again, that behavior of I've added a new allergen, Genesis is not automatically going to assign it to the new allergen that I just created. I need to do that. Again, speaking in this screen, you can make changes to the allergens. So if I uncheck celery from this view, it is going to unselect celery for all of the ingredients that I've used in my recipe, and it's removed information along the way. So celery is part of the additional statements. It was removed it from here. Note that if you remove celery allergen from this screen, it is a live interaction with the individual ingredients. So it would be unchecking on all of these ingredient records as well. So perhaps maybe not the best way to work with it if just knowing that that's the behavior. Another option is I can go line by line and uncheck the allergens that don't apply for this sesame seed, but note that it's not unchecking, it's not affecting this upper portion. So again, just be aware of how the behavior is working within Genesis. So best practice would be to go to the individual ingredient record and make modifications there. So I can file, open ingredient from there, or within my recipe, I can open an ingredient record directly. So if I right click on the ingredient itself and choose open item, then I get to the ingredient record. I can view my allergens, clear all of those that don't apply, and mark those that do. Save the ingredient record. When this is an ESHA database item, so it's giving me a pop-up warning, just some fields can be edited, some cannot for ESHA database items. So I do want to proceed with that save and update my allergens. Then I'll go back to my recipe, show the allergen statement again, and now we can see for the toasted sesame seed, it has updated that within my recipe. And then again, I would just want to clear out any allergens that don't apply for all of my ingredients, do a proper review so that I know it's updated with the information that I need to have for these ingredients. I'm going to click OK there. The allergen statement appears in a few views and screens and reports in the software. So if I choose View Label, then I can see that my allergen statement has taken shape based on the ingredients that I have in my recipe. So I have almonds contained in my recipe, I have egg, and I have sesame reported. Because I added that new allergen as it contains part of my allergen statement, it's showing on my US label when I'm working with the US label settings. And then just another note here, I have this allergen statement with my sesame reported. I may or may not need to include additional voluntary information like may contains information. You can see it has the sesame seeds. If I don't want to show that additional allergen statement, just click the show button and omit the additional allergen statement. So here I have my label, my ingredient statement, and then the US allergen statement that I want to see. So that's what I have to show you in Genesis. We'll move back to a bit more information and then we'll jump into the Q&A. So we do have some upcoming training sessions. So we do like to present these kind of brief webinars to give you a view of some features and specific topics. But if you need more formal instruction on the software, we have Genesis R&D training classes that dive much deeper into working with the software with discussions on regulations and specific scenarios. We offer typically a 2-day professional training and a 1-day advanced level course. These can be combined into a 3-day class option, or if you've already attended the professional level, the 2-day training, you can attend the 1-day advanced training as a single-day class. But the typical training covers the fundamentals of Genesis R&D as well as FDA label creation and regulations. We do occasionally have trainings that offer Canadian instruction or special topics. Look for those on the training schedule throughout the year. We have upcoming online training scheduled next week, actually, occurring, as well as classes in October and November that are online classes. And then in addition to these, we have reopened the Oak Brook training facility to in-person classes beginning in September, and we'll have another early in November. So again, look to the ESHA website for additional training schedule, registration, and more detailed information. You can find that on the ESHA website. There's a training tab. And if your organization needs to arrange training for your group and specific needs, please contact training@esha.com. You can stay in touch with ESHA in a variety of ways. If you needed to get in touch with our sales, support, or consulting teams, please reach us by phone, email, or other means. We also invite you to join our ESHA LinkedIn community, and you can find additional resources and subscribe to our blog and the ESHA newsletter on the ESHA website. So at this time, let us jump into a few questions that have come in. So Paulina, first question, what if my supplier is not reporting detailed ingredient information or hasn't updated their allergen information?
So you would definitely want to contact your suppliers now, begin contacting them, and see if they can provide you any updates or a timeline of when to expect updated information. By contacting them now, it at least kind of gets it on their radar, and hopefully that they'll have that updated information for you sooner rather than later.
Wonderful. Next question, can we begin declaring sesame now?
Yes, you can include sesame along with all other major allergens on your U.S. product packaging now. It is currently voluntary, but it will be mandatory come January 1st, 2023.
And if I have been tagging all of my ingredients with the Sesame Seeds allergen, will these show as U.S. sesame allergen when Genesis is updated?
Yes. If you have already been indicating which ingredients contain sesame using the Sesame Seeds allergen indicator, then this will be recognized as the U.S. sesame allergen in the next update of Genesis. For those of you who have cleared that Sesame Seeds allergen, those will remain cleared for the U.S. sesame allergen. So be sure to review all of your allergens again closely.
Wonderful. The next question, if I have only marked my ingredients with the U.S. allergens, then will sesame show for my ingredients?
Yes. So if in your previous review of ingredients, you have only worked with the U.S. allergens and did not review Sesame Seeds allergen, and you did not clear the Sesame Seeds allergen, with the next update of Genesis, those ingredients that have not been cleared of the Sesame Seeds allergen will indicate U.S. sesame allergen by default. You will want to review sesame and have that on your radar. The addition of sesame as an allergen for the US warrants a review of all of your ingredients and recipes. So just be aware of how Genesis will behave as of the 11.11 update. And again, we will remind you of these changes when the available version of 11.11 is released. And we will also present another webinar on the update to revisit this topic.
Great, thank you. And we have a couple more questions. I'll take these. One is, how do I display the allergen within the ingredient list? So again, yes, per the FDA guidance, you can clarify that an ingredient includes sesame within it. Or again, one of the allergen declaration options is if you choose to declare all of your allergens within your ingredient statement with the common names used. Again, within the ingredient statement, there are a couple, or there's a way to do that. One note on working with the allergens and the allergen features in Genesis is that it allows you a consistent way to track. So it's kind of built into the processes. When you're working with an ingredient, you check the allergens, it comes through to the allergen statement. So just keep that in mind. But if you did need to declare the allergen information within your ingredient statement. Let me just go back to our sesame flour. Of course, this ingredient already has sesame within the name, so it's being named sesame flour. But if you did need to have clarifying information, so you had a spice blend or something, when you work with the ingredient record, go to the ingredient statement tab, and you can edit the ingredient names. So click on the edit button. It opens this window, sesame flour. And then, so again, maybe this said spices. You could just type in information in parentheses to help clarify for consumers that this item contains sesame, and they'll want to be aware of that. So that's a way to include it within your ingredient statement in Genesis. And then the last question we have, what if I'm not ready to show sesame as an allergen on my US packages? So fair question. You know, one idea is that it is allowed, so maybe it's never too soon to start checking for the allergen information. But if you're just not ready to report it, again, you can track the sesame seed information within the current allergens, but when we release the next Genesis update, that would convert into reporting as US allergen as well. So if you're not prepared to do that by this fall and want to wait till closer to January 1st, 2023, you could tag, or using the groups, you could tag ingredients by setting up a sesame group, maybe creating a new group for sesame, and then marking this ingredient with a sesame indicator. We have additional resources on groups, how to add new groups and how to work with those in organizing your files and records. But if you chose to take that route, then tech support could help you link foods in a particular group to the sesame allergen at a later point in time when you're ready to do so. So that is all the time we have for today. And as mentioned, if we couldn't get to your question during this time, we'll follow up with you directly. But thank you again for attending, and have a great day.